On March 12, 2016, this is social lesson number 19, day 2, part 1. Greeting bridge friends, Michael here at Bridge Hands, and well, where are we? We're not in the studio today, which is, by the way, getting ready for some future lessons using webcasting. I'm doing some webinars, so stay tuned for that. But why here in my editing bay? Well, today's lesson is going to be on awareness, focus, environmental factors, and countermeasures. Yes, so what better place to have a lesson than where I have some distractions also. So I have to worry about, like, what are my lights? Is the audio being recorded? Is the camera in focus? Am I going to flub? Am I recording on the screencast? Will I remember the right keystrokes as we get into the lesson? Will the phone start ringing? And you have a lot of those types of same issues at the table, don't you? Do you have focus, synchronicity with your partner, in this case with the folks out there in Bridgeland? Yeah, good questions, aren't there? And if you do have a problem, what are the countermeasures? What are we going to do? How are we going to, as gracefully as possible, recover from those situations? So are you ready? Well, let's go ahead and head for the screen, not the table yet. Okay, so the first, we talked last time about high card points. 4, 3, 2, 1, Ace, King, Queen, Jack, as well as taking a look at distribution point, length for the declare, where we're trying to promote a suit. For the responder, normally the dummy, and that is where they're looking for shortness to get some extra roughing power on the partner's side suit. And we said, well, there's better ways to do that when we have a partnership fit. We can use losing trick count, and we can use cover cards for the responder to quickly evaluate how many tricks can we make. Typically, we want to have that major suit game, the golden fit, and if not, we go for no trump. We're not usually using losing trick count in that situation. And on those really bad days, we go for the minor suits. Hopefully, we've got a lot of length and a shortness somewhere to propel us to that 11 trick game, or maybe a slam. Okay, and today we are talking about looking and listening to the auction. And there's a lot to that, and we might, if we can't do that very well, at least be aware is that our left and right hand opponent, if they're better players, they're doing it to us, so we might want to watch out for tells, manners, gesturisms, and the like. So we'll get into that. Next week, we have the inferences from the leads. Okay, when the leads are made, what are the inferences we can make from that? After that, in week 4, we're going to take a look at preempts for fun and profit. Preempts are done often. Once in a while, they're done well with the right values. Sometimes people get a little bit wild. They kind of mastermind. We don't want to do that. We want to be a good partner. As we'll talk about in this lesson, we want to be in a situation where we give good information to our partner and maybe not so much to the opponents. Now, we can't use unethical practices in terms of our conventions, but, oh, what's this? Come here. I think I have a little distraction right here. Yes, here is Wonder Dog Kaliki, my Siberian Husky, and here we go, our first distraction. Will I let it rattle me? I'll try not to, but we'll see how persistent he is. On week number 5, we get into overcalls and doubles. Maybe a little bit on Q bids also, but when we have a competitive auction going around the table, doubles, sure. And sometimes we take a look at other situations, such as just doing a straight overcall. Q bids, maybe. And last week, we'll pull it all together and take a look at being a street, smart bridge player. That's right, to be in an environment where we are aware, and we are also not only aware of ourselves, but we're environmentally aware. We're going to get into some of that today, okay? All right, so first off, remember we go to bridgehands.com/videos to take a look at it, or just video if you want to do a shortcut way at the end of it there. Use your ID and password to log in, and the format is going to be, as always, we're going to start off with some slides, and then we're going to have hands. We're going to do some bidding and play at the table, and we're going to take a look and watch some other people play at the table in overhead view, some of our students who are going through this lesson locally. And then we're going to do a review and critique at the end, hopefully pull all this together, and then rinse, wash, lather, and repeat. So once you get your comments and feedback, we'll go ahead and head off for the next week. So here we go. Okay, so bridge is really a straightforward game consisting of picking up our cards, sorting them, hand evaluation, making our bids, making our play, having our tactics, sort of. But really, there's a lot more than just the sort of to it, isn't it? I would say so. Let's take a look at some of the other things that come into play here. Well, first of all, there's many billions of hands that can be dealt. So we have some of the things we can't always talk about. We can teach some of the fundamentals here, but we can't cover every possible hand in our lifetime. And that's one of the joys about bridge. It is a lifetime of learning. And then there's a situation where there is the competition, including ourselves. Sometimes I hope I'm not my center hand opponent to my partner, right? You get me? We have a left and right hand opponent, but we don't want to be a center hand opponent. But sometimes people do different things in different situations with the same cards. People have mistakenly played the same hand twice, and they bid or play different. What's up with that? So there is the human factors in this game also, right? Okay, so some players are logical. We can count on them always to be right down the center of the golf fairway, keeping the ball in play. And others get a little bit more right brain, shall we say, a little bit more emotional, a little bit more creative. As one of my partners one time said when asked about what my bid meant by an opponent, sometimes Michael does not always make systemic bid. Wow, do I really? I guess I'm somewhat left brain analytical myself. So the three types of people. First, there are the movers and the shakers, the leaders that cause things to happen. Second, there are those who are close by, the ones who are implementing, aware of what's going on, and ready to go ahead and seize those opportunities. And the third type, those who don't know what happened at all. And that's what we don't want to be in. We want to work our way to the second and the first to get higher on the totem pole, or the top of the pyramid, if you will, to where we have an awareness of ourselves, awareness of the situations at the table, those environmental factors that go on there. So be sure that you get the memo, as they say, and you're not unaware of what's happening around the table. So in terms of being self-aware, there's actually 5 stages. If you look it up in Wikipedia, it's quite interesting about our mirror neurons that go on, and how, like humans, apes, chimpanzees, dolphins, is that they have an opportunity to look in the mirror and to be self-aware. And they have 5 different phases of it, to where you can finally, I can recognize not that it's a person, but it's even myself. I can recognize, like they do on pets, where they put a red dot on their head, and I've got a red dot in my head. I know where to look for it. So similarly, we want to have that at the table. We want to be self-aware. And if we're thinking about just our ego, well, that might work against us because we're kind of too much internally focused and not aware, which then gets us to the situational awareness. To have focus on our environment, not just ourselves, not just looking at our 13 pasteboards, but looking what's going on around the table. Now, we can't try to take our partner's manners, gestures, utterances, and the like, and use that in terms of our bidding and play. But we can for our opponents, maybe at our own peril, but at least we should be aware, because our opponents, better opponents, are going to be doing that to us, okay? So, our analytical and deductive abilities are very important in this game, and we spend a lot of times here at Bridge Hands talking about this. But there is more. There's this thing about the power of observation. We have our knowledge and skills. We have our long-term memory, knowing the field and the opponents. And which do you think are most important of those 5? I'm kind of curious. Well, I think most would agree the concentration, focus, and observation. Did you sleep well last night? Have you been imbibing lately? Or you maybe have something else on your mind before you got to the table? And for sure, analytical, deductive abilities, those are important too. In other words, we are, as Bob Ammon would say, we are at the table, not somewhere else. Sometimes I must admit that I can have what I call the first-hand syndrome. I'm just not really well grounded yet, and I haven't taken a couple extra moments to just kind of be at the table. And how about when you're playing in a duplicate room with maybe 60 or more people, and there's a lot of movement at the end of the game, the last hand syndrome, where we have distractions and someone's saying, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, get the boards in. Yeah, that can be a problem. So to stay focused in spite of various distractions is something that requires a lot of concentration and focus. So each hand, there's a lot of things to consider. A lot of things, aside from what goes on at the table. I mean, just in our own hand. So we have lots of decisions on how we want to bid, how we see maybe the bidding progress before it's even started. More on that later. But in each hand, we have over 100 different decisions because there's a lot of inferences that are going on around the table. As the bids are made, the manner in which the bids are made, how that opening lead comes down. Was there a delay, hesitation, pause? Was there any kind of table vibes that went on there? Did somebody look really assertive? And we have some X factor. We'll speak about that in a little bit. So, there's a lot of things going on. So you can imagine then, if that happens just in one hand, then how about if you're playing maybe 3 hours or more? Yeah, you can have literally thousands of different decisions to make, which means that fatigue and overload can and probably will happen. So we have to be aware is that the more we are like the proverbial frog put in the cold water and the water gets turned up and it starts to get hot, what are we going to do? Can we go ahead and get a couple moments between hands where we can take some countermeasures into play, or even in one hand where there maybe is you have 5, 10, 20 seconds where there's something non-critical, you hope, and you have to know which ones are, and that comes from practice, but to make sure that we don't get fatigued too much. And distractions, yes, we can have the focus on the wrong things. And I'm saying this right now, I'm thinking, well, I can go up there to one of my bridge books that I have by Frank Stewart, leading columnist that's syndicated across the nation and world, and he has one that is called Becoming an Expert. And he talks about something called fixation. And that is where we're focusing, by golly, but we're not focusing on the right thing. We're kind of like we spoke about before. We maybe got the memo, but we're not looking at the right memo at the right time, right? We don't want to be that last of the 3 types of people. We want to do it, and that comes with time. So, for instance, we find that when we can start knowing what to look at, it makes it a lot easier, and that comes with practice. So if we start talking about hand shape, well, it could be a 4-4-3-2, adds up to 13 cards in my hand. Our 4-4-3-2, the way the suits fall across the table, the cards in the suit, that is. Or maybe it's a 4-3-3, doesn't happen that much. Or how about a 5-3-3-2, very common, the ugly duckling hand they call it. A 5-4-3-1, a 5-4-2-2, a 5-5-2-0, 2-1, or a 5-5-3-0. Those are all different hand shapes, and when you get better at recognizing those, you can do what's called chunking, where you are aware of the different patterns, and you can identify those very quickly, just like a chess player can, or someone who memorizes pi to thousands of digits. 3.14159286, blah, 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 blah. You get to where you get to know these patterns, okay? So we need to know when to be alert and where to focus our attention, the 5 W's. And as I'm going through this, and you think, well, why did he have that first bullet down at the bottom and the next one up at the top? What was it that? Yeah, we get kind of just lose our concentration, maybe just wondering about those things. Why is the one bullet put above the other? So better bridge players, though, they are at the table, and they do have what Eckhart Tolle, I guess, calls the power of now, if you're into that sort of thing. But we're living in the current moment, not kind of what our right side of the brain. People who study this, they say about 80 to 90% of our thoughts are all right brain. They're all our subconscious is bubbling up these things. We think it's all our conscious. We're really in the moment. But so often there's all these other things that are kind of like, I've got the one person on my shoulder is, how are you doing with the lesson so far? You had a little flub there on that last one, but the right one is just like saying, oh, come on, keep going. You're doing okay. I'm with you. So there's all those things there that are not really in the current moment that are potentially causing us to get distracted. Don't want to let that happen too much, do we? But we do want to use our subconscious brain to let it help us with our creativity at some times. So we would like to have our signals to be clear, to be unambiguous, to give more information to our partner than it does to the opponent. We don't want to be illogical. We don't want to be baffling, mysterious, or sometimes when we're playing cards, we can't always give the signal with the right card. So we can't say, or sometimes it maybe just doesn't matter. What would be a for instance on that? Well, let's say the opponents are in 3 no trump. They have 25 to maybe 28 points between them. If they had 29-30, they might be investigating for a slam. So let's say they're somewhere in that range. I've got 15 points myself. You can't have any. So it's 25 for them, 15 for me. You have none. So your signals won't mean anything to me. It might show a count signal, might be helpful, but in terms of attitude for having ace, king, queen, jack, I don't think so, unless they have distribution points their way. But yeah, so I would have the points, and so that would be, we'd more want to just watch the count rather than we would the attitude for the ace, king, queen, jacks, and vice versa. So sometimes we don't want to say. More on that later. And this visibility matters too. So as a for instance, do I have some cards here at the table? Oh, I think I do have some right here. Let's get a handful of them here. And so I've got my cards, and I'm holding them in my left hand, like most people that are right-handers do. And who do you think, if anything, will see my cards? My left-hand opponent or my right-hand opponent? Yeah, my right-hand opponent, because typically when we hold them, we don't hold them like this. We hold them a little bit open. That's where our hand holds it naturally. So we must be aware of the fact is that the way we hold our cards, we don't want to be where we show it to our partner. Now, if you keep your cards behind the table, that's a good thing, because if you drop one, it's going to drop on the floor. It's not going to be at the table where you maybe have a penalty card. But more than that, when you have them behind the table, even if you do hold them a little bit open, it's not as likely your opponent should see. They're not supposed to look, but if they do, well, like my mother says, one peek is worth 2 finesses, right? So at any rate, but the other part of it is when a card is played. If a card is played on the table and is played kind of quickly and turned over, well, you may not have got a chance to see it was the 8 of diamonds. And you may not have got it registered in your ROM, your read-only memory. It may not be programmed in there. So don't let an opponent just go ahead and do quick play you to where they make a play and then flip it over real quickly. Take the time. You have the right until you turn your card over to see what the card faces are. Even the dummy has the right to see what the opponents are doing. They may say, well, it doesn't matter for you. Well, although you can't say anything at that moment, you have the right to, after the hand is played, to say, well, hey, there looked like it was a revoke, a renege on one of the tricks, and let's all go back and take a look at trick 4 and see what happened. Made sure everybody played, because I thought you didn't play a diamond, and then later on you did play a diamond. So we all have the right to see the card's face. So visibility is an important factor. Okay, well, over time, we quickly begin to get those patterns where we've identified them, and so we get to do this kind of chunking, be able to look at these patterns and be able to assimilate it. And when we do, that then gives us more time to be able to focus our attentions elsewhere, to be able to multitask, to be able to process more quickly, and to be more confident. Now, we know that when we're talking like this now, I'm thinking a little bit about what's coming next maybe, but some of it's kind of that right brain, right? The subconscious is coming up with, what am I going to say this time? And how about a touch typing? If I'm typing on the computer, I don't know what my fingers are doing. They're just spelling words. So as we get better, we don't have to think about the patterns. It just comes second nature, like riding a bicycle or driving a car. Okay? Well, I think we're going to take a pause for a moment now, and we're going to go ahead and try one hand at the table and take a look at some of the decisions that come in, and then we'll kind of check in back here and proceed. Okay, so far so good. Okay, here we go at the table. North is actually to the left, south is to the right. Looks like they passed the table. Look at. Oh, there you are. Well, it looks like we're already 19 and a half minutes into this. Time flies when we're having fun, doesn't it? So we're going to go ahead and close this out for part 1. Part 2, 3, maybe more, because we have quite a few hands yet to play. And we still have more chalk talk at the table on the environmental factors, on focus, on attention, and, yes, the countermeasures. So stay tuned for that. Come on over to www.bridgehands.com for more of our show. And if you aren't already a free member, sign on up. And if you're ready to go to the next stage to go on to see the full show, by all means, sign up for our Ultra membership. You won't go wrong there. So thank you for coming by, and I hope you have a great day, as always, playing bridge. Bye for now.